Shedeur Sanders to the New Orleans Saints is heating up, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about that today. So Colorado had their pro day, which saw Shedeur Sanders throwing, which saw Deion in front of mics. And this was sent to me. So this is from the New Orleans Saints Block Podcast or Block Party Podcast. So he was there. Okay, so he asked Deion about the potential of Shedeur playing in New Orleans. Let's take a listen.
Coach, could you speak to the possibility of Shedeur being coached by Kellen Moore, who's coached Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, and recently?
Say it again.
Speak to the possibility of Shedeur being coached. Yes, sir.
The Saints?
Yes, sir.
I like the colors. I like the colors. I like the city. I like the food. I like the people. I like the possibilities.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm showing you that to show you this. So this was on ESPN. So this is how Deion ended this interview on ESPN.
Appreciate you joining us here on SportsCenter.
I got us in with this. I like these colors, though. Don't you like these colors?
Great. You look great on you. I'm trying to get some gear on the way out.
Wink. I like these colors. Yeah.
So obviously, he is hinting heavily at the New Orleans Saints being a landing spot for Shedeur. Now, I think it says a lot more that Kellen Moore, no pun intended, it says more that Kellen Moore wasn't at this pro day. Scott Tolzien was, the Saints quarterback coach, but Kellen Moore wasn't. All right. I think that says more than whatever Deion is saying. I think Deion is positioning and leveraging and doing what he can to hype up landing spots for Shedeur, which he's, any dad would do. So I put way more weight into the fact that Kellen Moore wasn't there. And some people say, well, what if, James, they're playing 27D chess where they're trying to hide the fact that they're interested? That is not a thing, okay? You think they would rather hide the fact that they're interested than have the head coach go to the pro day of potentially the franchise quarterback? No, all right? Everyone knows they're interested. Everyone knows there's a landing spot. This isn't poker. This isn't, Phil Hellmuth ain't walking through that door, okay? So I don't buy that. I don't buy the idea that Kellen Moore is playing some kind of crazy 16D chess game where he's trying to trick the NFL by not sending Tolzien. That's getting too damn cute. But let's talk about Shedeur as a prospect. So there's a few different ways you have to look at a prospect and look at a quarterback. You got to look at it for the class, okay, because that is who he's going to be drafted against. That is where, that does factor in where he's being drafted, what you have to invest in him, and all that. But then you have to look at, okay, how good is he when it pertains to the NFL, right? So in this draft class, I think Shedeur falls just behind Cam Ward. I think Cam has a higher ceiling. I think Cam has a bit of a better arm and maybe could take that next step to be, like I said, to have a bit of a higher ceiling, a little more potential. But Shedeur is not too far behind him. Shedeur, he's kind of a funny player because he is a lot of pomp, he's a lot of circumstance, he's a lot of flash, he's a lot of glitz and glamour, high name player, high name brand, all that stuff. But he's not really a flashy player. He's very consistent and he's almost boring. I'll give you his comp right now. I was going to save this towards the end. I think he comps out almost identical to Tua. And Tua is about as boring and low ceiling, high floor as it gets. You know what you're going to get with Tua. And I think you know what you're going to get with Shedeur. Shedeur has been incredibly consistent his entire career, whether it's Jackson State, whether it's Colorado, whether it's Colorado again. No matter where he's been, no matter the systems he's in, no matter the coaches around him, no matter the players around him, he pretty much does the same thing all the time. Negatives to Shedeur is not an elite arm. I think his arm is good enough, but not an elite arm. The biggest negative is his pocket presence. Shedeur takes way too many sacks. So I have a bunch of stats pulled up here we're going to talk about. So this is from Warren Sharp. So he took way too many sacks. PFF credited 26% of his pressures to being his own fault, which is number one in the class. 17 sacks are his fault. For comparison, Cam Ward had 2 sacks that were his fault. Shedeur is not great. There's a combination of things. One, his drop back and his pocket presence and all that is not spectacular. If you watch him drop back, it's more of like he kind of steps back, kind of moonwalks backwards. We all know, like, he's literally walking backwards, whereas a true drop back looks a little different, okay? He marries that with he holds onto the ball way too long. He has this kind of like hero mentality where he'll hold on to the ball for a long time. He is very willing to take hits. I'll say that. Shedeur is insanely tough. Like, he will take hits, he will stay in there, but sometimes those turn into sacks. And in a lot of games, if you go back and look at his game tape, there are a lot of games where Shedeur is taking sacks that take Colorado out of drives in the NFL. You cannot do that, okay? Shedeur is not a superstar runner. He's really not a runner at all. Very similar to Tua, where if he does escape, he's athletic enough to get out of the pocket or to escape a little bit, but once he gets past that line of scrimmage, he's not doing much, okay? He's getting a couple yards here and there, ducking out of bounds, sliding down. He is not a true, like, threat on the ground. What he is, though, is insanely accurate. 81% of completions on passes from a clean pocket, number one in class. 70% on target rate of throws 10-plus yards downfield, second in class. 48% of his passes came without help via design, so no play action, motion, RPO, any of that stuff. Number one highest rate in the class. And those many attempts without help, 70% completion, 10.6 yards per attempt, 10% touchdown rate. Okay, let's look at some more stuff here. Shedeur, insanely accurate. What gets lost in the shuffle of the high volume of short game discourse that we have is that he also threw 15% of his throws over 20 yards, more than Ward. Okay? So Shedeur is super, super, super accurate, much like Tua. All right, let me keep going here. From a clean pocket, he averaged 2.35 seconds to throw the football, sixth fastest rate in the class. Sanders completed a class-high 80.8% of his passes from a clean pocket in 2024. Now, here's where that gets skewed a little bit. 24.1, so let's just call it 25%. Let's just call it a quarter of his passes came at or behind the line of scrimmage, the third highest rate in the class. So Shedeur has a funny game tape where you kind of have to take these 25% of throws out, right? Because you can only judge so much from a prospect when their throws are at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage. You're not going to learn too much, right? So take a quarter of his throws out. Then you think about how many times he's under pressure, how many times the offensive line is falling apart, all of that. You also lose those plays. So his actual tape of what a team would be scouting is relatively small. 15.3% of his passing yardage came on screens, the highest or the second highest rate in the class. Okay. Sanders also had a 70% on target rate on his throws 10 or more yards downfield, which was second in his class. So even though he did have a tremendous amount of his yards and reps at or behind the line of scrimmage, he is still good throwing the ball downfield. He is still accurate. He can still throw the ball downfield. That's not something. That's not something you got to be worried about. All right, let's keep going. Let's see here. So yeah, 47.6% of Sanders' pass attempts came without play action, motion, or an RPO component. Highest rate in the class. We already talked about that. On those plays, 70.3% of his passes, third in the class. We talked about that. Let's see. He took a class-high 7.3% sack rate. We talked about that. Yeah, so that's where we're pretty much at with Shedeur. Now, so what do we do with that? Shedeur is probably somewhere, to me, he's behind Drake May, if we were to look at like the last two classes. I think he's behind Drake May, but I would have him either the same or slightly ahead of J.J. McCarthy is where I would have Shedeur Sanders. Okay. Like I said, I think he's a little bit behind Cam Ward. I would have Cam Ward behind Drake May. So I'd probably have it Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Cam Ward, Shedeur, J.J. McCarthy, and then you can keep going. Keep going from there. In this class, yeah, he's the second best quarterback in the class. In the NFL, like I said, I think he's probably Tua. So ask yourself, don't even say like Shedeur or a comp or whatever. Would you want Tua on the Saints? Would you be like, would you feel great with Tua on the Saints, or is that just a different version of just kind of an average to above average quarterback? Where are you really going with Tua? Where are you really going with with a player like that, right? And therein kind of lies the rub in the NFL draft, where a prospect can be good, but is good worth the pick in this situation? If I told you Shedeur would be exactly like Tua, exactly as good as Tua, would you take him at 9? Depends on who's there, right? If Mason Graham is there, or another one of these high level prospects, probably not. Now, if it's just the cornerbacks and Mike Green and Shedeur, it's like, well, I'd probably rather have the sure thing in Tua than one of these random cornerbacks. Okay, so it is relative. Shedeur is an interesting prospect. I think for sure there is talk of what do we do if he is there at 9. But on the whole, it's like, I know a lot of people have super polarizing takes with Tua or with Shedeur, where they either love him or they hate him. I'm kind of relatively indifferent on him because I'm relatively indifferent on Tua. And I would be relatively indifferent on the idea of Tua on the Saints. So if we end up going that route and we do take Shedeur, he is in a great situation where he can sit behind Carr for a year. He can work on some of the things we just talked about, like his drop back and his pocket presence and some of that. He does get to relax, which I think it's always better for a rookie quarterback to sit and then seemingly take over after Carr. And then bada bing, bada boom, the Saints are kind of set at quarterback, as set as Tua, as set as the Dolphins are. High end, I think the absolute high end of what you're looking at is like CJ Stroud, where he's not elite physically. Oh, another thing Shedeur does really well is process. Shedeur is a really, really good processor at the line of scrimmage, looking at defenses, pre and post snap. He is good at that. Okay, so the actual mental side of the game, the actual processing the plays, all of that, really good at. Looking at the defense, understanding what the defense wants to do. Accuracy, good. Can make all the throws. Again, like his velocity isn't crazy. He's not going to like pump the ball downfield. The ball does tend to float a little bit, which at the NFL level, that just means you have to be even better at processing because you have to get the ball out with a little bit more finesse than the guys who can just, like the Josh Allen, who can just put the ball where they want no matter what. When you look at the game tape, some of the throws from Shedeur to the other side of the field, when he has to really stretch his arm out, the ball does tend to float. With that being said, he doesn't have a weak arm. Okay, I don't want that to get. He's not Jake Haener, so I'd have full faith that Shedeur can make every throw on the field. It's just he's not making every throw on the field with smoke, coming out of his hand like a Josh Allen. Okay, so that's where we're at with Shedeur, and I think Shedeur is. I'll wrap up the Shedeur talk with, I think he is a legitimate thought for the Saints at 9. I think it is absolutely worth the discussion for the Saints. And I think that's why Tolzien was there. Because, yeah, he is a possibility. If the board breaks in a certain way and all of these guys are gone, then you do owe it to yourself to look at Shedeur Sanders. He is a potential franchise quarterback. He is a potential draft pick. He potentially could be there. So as a franchise, it would be insane not to be at his pro days, not to be having private conversations with him or whatever. So I think he is absolutely in play for the Saints. Whether they should do it or not, I mean, it's like I said, it's hard to say. I can see it both ways, honestly. I can see it both ways. I would understand it depending on how the board broke. I would not take Shedeur Sanders over Mason Graham, Ted McMillan, Jihad Campbell, Jalen Walker, any of those guys. I would probably take him over Jahdae Barron, Will Johnson, and Mike Green or Shamar Stewart or someone like that. Okay? All right. Before we wrap it up, I want to talk about Travis Hunter really, really quick here. So Travis Hunter was also at the Pro Day. I just want to show some... I've had a lot of people say, like, they don't think Hunter is good or they don't think Hunter is this or that. I just want to show some stuff just because I think it's getting kind of... I don't know if people weren't watching Travis Hunter or whatever, but I do think it's interesting where a lot of people are like, well, Shedeur Sanders didn't play at a big school. Shedeur Sanders didn't play in a big conference. Shedeur Sanders didn't have top competition. Travis Hunter didn't have top competition. So we should draft Ted McMillan. And it's like, wait a minute, they played in the same conference. Like, and people are like, well, Cam Ward's way better. It's like, well, it's not like Miami was playing against, the AFC West. I would argue Shedeur Sanders did more at Colorado with what he had than what Cam Ward did at Miami with what he had, right? Miami was a relative disappointment. So, and again, the Ted McMillan stuff, it's like him and Travis Hunter are in the same conference, running routes against the same competition. Like, I think that's a bad narrative unless the team is like North Dakota State or Marshall or something like that, where they're in a low conference. But if you're in the Big 12 or you're in the American or you're in the, Big 10, like if you're in a Power 5 conference, then what else can you really do, right? So let's look at this. So this is from Todd McShay. Travis Hunter is the 8th player ever to be named consensus first-team All-American and earn any level of academic All-American honors. In 2024, Hunter earned academic All-America first-team honors for second consecutive year with a 3.79 GPA and with an anthropology major. He's just the 3rd Heisman winner ever to earn academic All-American first-team status, joining Florida's Danny Werfel and Tim Tebow. Okay, Travis Hunter is another guy very similar to Shedeur, where I think because of Deion, I think because of Colorado, I think because of all that, people think he's like got a lot of baggage or he's a diva or whatever. Travis Hunter is the opposite. Travis Hunter is a football dude through and through. I was listening to an interview with Travis Hunter, and they were asking him what his hobbies are. Travis Hunter has 3 hobbies: football, fishing, and video games. That's all he does. When he's not playing football, he's fishing. When he's not fishing, he's live streaming and playing video games. And during that, he's playing the college football video game. He is a homebody. He is an isolated kind of guy where he just wants to be home. He wants to be doing that stuff. So, and this kind of shows like Travis Hunter is a hell of a dude. I will give him that. He is a hell of a guy. Every single thing I've heard, his character has been through the roof. So we'll look at some other stuff here. This is from Reddit. This is the part I wanted to show you. So he has a 66.7 contested catch rate, which is second. And he has a 1.54 drop rate, which is second. Ted McMillan has a 50% contested catch rate and a 4% drop rate. All right. Travis Hunter's 94.2 yards per game is ahead of Ted McMillan's 92.3 yards per game. He's got a crazy deep threat score. The problem with Travis Hunter as a wide receiver is that his yak. He's not really a yak kind of receiver. He is a stretch the ball down the field, get open, make the catch, sure-handed, contested catch rate, whatever, but don't expect him to do too much after the catch. If we look at his reception percentage, which this is the first time I've ever seen a fully green tree outside of Christmas. Okay. 92nd percentile success rate versus man, 97th percentile success rate versus zone, 97th percentile success rate versus press. Again, we looked at the drop rate, which is absolutely elite. He does not drop passes. And blah, blah, blah. So there you go. Is this one of the best profiles you've ever done? Yes. So Travis Hunter is an elite wide receiver prospect. Elite. Certainly compared to the rest of this class. He is miles ahead of all the other receivers in this class. There are questions at the next level of, okay, what is the yak? Is his inability to get the yak, is that going to hurt him? And we've seen the comps, like the super high end comps have him as Justin Jefferson. I think it's a lot to comp somebody to like arguably the best player at his position in the NFL, but there is no doubt that Travis Hunter is elite as a wide receiver prospect. Like if you saw these numbers from anybody else and you add in the drop rate, you add in the contested catch rate, you add in the deep threat, you add in all that, yeah, he's going to be the number 1 wide receiver in the class. So, and I just wanted to talk about Hunter for a second. I know we can't draft him. I know he's not in the Saints world, and this is why I keep saying he should just be a wide receiver. He wasn't an elite defensive back in college. Good enough, but if I was him or if I was a team drafting him, I would primarily have him focus on this. I would primarily have him focus on being a wide receiver and see what he could do. All right. And for all of you that have been watching the channel for a long time, I had a 20-1 ticket on Travis Hunter to win the Heisman last year, which cashed. Very, very nice cash. So I love him like a brother. Okay, there you go. That's my thoughts on the whole thing. With Shedeur, a little baby bit of Travis Hunter there at the end. Good conversation. I mean, it's going to be interesting. It really is. It's going to be interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.